Hi folks, my name is Linda Emmett and welcome to Happiness is an Inside Job. We are the creators of our own reality, we create our own lives. Our mind is our biggest limit and it's our own beliefs, behaviours and habits constantly caught in those cycles that keep us trapped where we are and stand in the way of our own happiness. So throughout this podcast, we're going to take a deep dive into some of those beliefs, habits and patterns, where they show up in your lives and what you can do to change them. Hi Noodles and welcome aboard this week's podcast. And this week we're going to dive into money, yourselves. Money is so taboo. It's even more taboo than talking about sex. And it's an absolute requirement for us to live the life we want, to have the freedoms we want, to really enjoy life. But we're taught so many different things and so many ways of being in and around money. We're conditioned, we have our ancestral lineage, our beliefs, our thoughts on what money is and how much we're allowed to have. And we set our own structure and paradigm around it. And that stops us achieving or allowing ourselves to have as much money as we desire in our lives. And for me, I know certainly the money space is somewhere that I've struggled for a long time. And not even in what I've earned, but more in what I do with it, how I am with it, what my relationship with money is. And in diving into this for me and for my life going forward, I wanted to share some of the learnings that I've had and I've learned with yourselves. So first, we're going to look at money itself and that we're actually in a relationship with money. Money is just energy. It's a transaction. You barter things in that we gain something from someone, or we're buying a good from someone or somewhere, and in exchange for that we give over that paper, we give over that money, we give that value. A lot of the time we're in that, we've actually subconsciously already put a value on ourselves, on what we believe our worth is, and that ties into then where we live, how we live, what we spend, what we allow ourselves to earn. All of that is embedded in our relationship with money itself. So it is so worthwhile to look at. And again, because it's so taboo, we don't allow ourselves desire money. We have a scarcity mindset where we believe if we're getting more money, someone else isn't. Someone else is losing out. And that is not at all the way money works. It's not we're taken from anybody else. I mean, like, if you look at the world around you and the absolute trillions that are within it, what you want is potentially not even a ripple on the ocean. And money is created all the time. The tech industry alone can show you that. Look at the billions that social media, new apps, all of that create constantly. But it is an opening up to our own money story, our own DNA in and around money, our own constrictions we have on ourselves and our own beliefs around it. It is only in that changing our relationship with money is when we'll lift the limits and allow ourselves to achieve more of what it is we want. So firstly, and this is what I did when I started out doing this work and doing this course, I literally wrote a letter to money. And in writing a letter, and I would advise you folks, if it's something you want to dive into and really look at your relationship with money and the constraints that you have on yourself, I would advise you to dive in and do this. And it's first looking at, writing that letter and giving you a snapshot, a picture of where you are now. So introducing yourself to money and then opening up that relationship, looking at what your biggest fear is around money. When you're living, when you think of money, what is your biggest fear? What is the first thought that comes in? For some of us, it can be, money's the root of all evil. If I have money, someone else doesn't have money. Money makes me be greedy. Money is a sin. And whatever your fear is, that's your block. That's what's standing in your way, because every time more flow, more money comes into your life, you are pushing it away, you're sending it away, you're ignoring it, all because you have this fear within. So looking at that, looking at what it is you dislike about money. And for me, I know certainly it always comes in, but it always goes, it always disappears, it's always taken away. I felt very powerless in and around money. I would get money in, but as quick as it came in, it was gone. So that powerlessness had me not even looking into creating change because I felt so powerless to it. What was the point? This is the way it is. And it's only in looking at those things and any hurts that you believe money has caused you or money has caused in your life, whether it's someone losing their job, whether it's someone, losing their home, homelessness, whatever it is, whatever hurts that you have that are tied back to money. Basically, what we're doing is we're blaming money on these things. When money is just an energy, it's what people do with it that counts, what we choose to do with it that makes all the difference. But understanding what your fears, your dislikes, your beliefs, and any hurt or anger that you have in and around money, and putting that all down on paper and giving yourself a snapshot of exactly where you are now, and then looking at what your biggest wish is for money. What do you desire? What is it you want? We all know what we don't want. I don't want it to disappear. I don't want to be broke. I don't want to be on my knees. Don't want to be living on a wish and a prayer. All of those things, but we rarely look at what it is we do wish, what we do desire, what the drive is, what you'll do. If you had £1 million, €1 million tomorrow, or 2 million or 3 million, whatever it is, what would you be doing? What dreams would you be living? What desires? What wishes? How would you be getting up each day? What would you be doing? What would you be eating? Who would you surround yourself with? All of these things. Writing down what your dreams, wishes and desires are, and how you would like money to show up for you. How do you want it to show up in your life? Where do you want it to be? And getting that down on paper, because it shows you the gap between where you are and where you want to be, and how you plan to show up for money. If you're constantly hating on it, despising it, fearing it, feeling powerless around it, worried about it, squirreling it away, whatever it is, there's things in you that need to change your relationship with money in the first place. So getting all of this down on paper, writing all of this down or recording it, whatever works for you, and getting yourself a snapshot of where you are now, what your relationship with money is like. That's your starting point for creating the transformation of your relationship with money. And it might sound a bit nuts, a relationship with money, but think about it. We can often feel money rejected us, abandoned us, left us, ran away from us. That's all a relationship. And what we want is to shift from a scarcity, lack or negative relationship into a more empowered, powerful relationship with money. So once you've got your letter written, then it's looking at where your relationship comes from, what your money DNA is, what it is that your ancestral beliefs are around money, what has carried down through your lineage, through generations before you, what it was that, because remember folks, we're conditioned from when we're children. So what it was you heard all the time growing up about money, turn off them lights, it's not Blackpool, I can't pay the bills. I know for me, certainly I lived through a recession, and I know that a lot of people, including my father, lost his job. He had to go out looking for work. I could see and feel the powerlessness he felt. I seen it impact his value, his worth as a person, and where that took him. And I know I, for a long time, connected your worth as a person to money. So for allowing yourselves, folks, the time to think back on when you were growing up, what was it like in your household? Was money extremely scarce? Were you looking at, what your siblings got in comparison to you? How are your parents around money? How are your grandparents around money? What are the sayings that you always heard about money? As I say, money's the root of all evil. For me, there was a lot of resentment around money, around what other people had, what other people wanted to take from you. There was a lot of robbing, there was a lot of strife. So I grew up with those fears in and around money, that money caused resentment, stealing, greed. If you had things, people were more likely to break into your house and rob you, and different things like that. Again, I grew up in quite an underprivileged neighbourhood, and this all structured what I then believed around money and how safe you were if you had money, whether you fitted in because you had money. I know for my grandparents, they gave a lot away. They loved their children, so they gave so much away. So a part of my beliefs was to show love. You gave it all away, and all of these things impact. To hold on to it makes you greedy, makes you mean, makes you live like a miser, makes you live like, Ebenezer Scrooge. So looking at these things in your life, what you heard growing up, what your grandparents, your parents, your siblings, your surrounding environment, because this will show you the inherited beliefs that you're carrying. And it is only in changing your beliefs and your patterns around money that you will get the empowerment to change your financial patterns now and your future going forward. What it is that comes into your life money wise going forward, it is in looking at your relationship now as it stands with money, where that's come from, what your beliefs are, to change the structure and change your future for you, change what will come into your life going forward. As I mentioned, I've always felt quite powerless around money. It'd be taken, stolen. Therefore, the minute I got it in, I would make sure it was all gone so as it couldn't be taken. Again, this doesn't make sense to the rational or conscious mind, but we're emotional beings. A lot of this comes from your subconscious, and your subconscious is all emotion. That's why our fears are often irrational. Our behaviours are irrational around these things like money, because we're coming from our emotional space. And because I felt powerless, I was taking power and spending as much as I could before it was taken away. Which reignited the powerlessness, because then I'd have 0 in my bank account. And it's only when I decided to take the deep dive and look within what I was creating in my life, what I was doing, how I was showing up with money, and not seeing it as this elusive entity that hung around for a bit, swooped in, and then abandoned you again. They were my views, and it's only in looking at them and having the willingness to begin to shift them, and what my negative beliefs were around money was huge. And I remember as a very young kid, well, I suppose a little teeny bopper growing up, I, as a lot of you know that listen to the podcast, I did a grandmother that I absolutely adored, loved. And when I used to go visit her, she used to ask me to go around the shops and get her milk and her bread and everything else. And I go around the shops and get our milk and our bread for her, and then come back, spend a bit of time for her. Then I'd head off on the 2 buses home. But this particular time I went over, and I really wanted to go to disco with my friends. And there was no money. I didn't have any money to go. And, I was young, wanted to go. So I went to the shops, got her all our bits, and I kept the change, which I think was about $12.50 at the time. It was enough for the disco and enough to get a lemonade. And I remember standing she'd come out of the house every time you were going and stand there and wave until you went around the corner. And I remember standing there and waving with such love, and me walking around the corner knowing what I had in my pocket. And it's only recently that I realised how profoundly that actually affected me. I remember feeling such shame, such guilt, such badness. Had I have asked her for it, she absolutely would have gave it to me. But as that kid, I hadn't the capacity to ask. I just didn't. I just hadn't the capacity to ask for what I needed. And instead I took it. And for me, a part of my shaping with money is to have money is to manipulate and rob loved ones, to take, and that early experience and to do that on her really shaped how it was one of them imprint moments. It really shaped my views of money and what money created going forward. And I've had to restructure all of that, because we've all had behaviours in our lives that we blame money for. And it's not money, it's our own scarcity, it's our own lack, it's our own beliefs around money that create that. And I believed that me doing that meant money created evil, money created greed, money created you peeing all over your loved ones. And that is not true. A part of what created that situation was my unwillingness or lack of capacity to ask for what I needed. Second part was I was a 12-year-old kid trying to fit in with our friends. I wanted to go to disco. And that need to go to disco overrode the need to be honest or give back to change or wherever else. And I think the worst part about it was I to this day believe she knew I hadn't given her back to change, and I think that's what stung the most. That she knew I'd done that on her, that I'd hurt her in that way. And it took me a long time and an understanding of what I was carrying to accept it, to forgive myself for it, and to start changing my own relationship with money and to start living with money differently in my life. So I urge us folks, if you want to get out of the struggle and strife and move into the thriving space, start looking at what you were surrounded with in your childhood growing up around money and what your story is, what your letter is now. Because it is only in the understanding this that you can start to rewrite and rewire those mindsets into more abundant spaces, moving out of the scarcity and that belief that this is the way it always is. I'm powerless to money. It doesn't come to me. Whatever it is, you'll be always scrambling for the price of a tin of beans, or you'll never have that dream home you want. You'll never be able to start that business. Whatever it is, whatever that block is, you need to understand it first. And that's by looking within and looking at what you're carrying. Because these beliefs are absolutely potent. And they're often hidden underneath our awareness. They're in our subconscious rather than our conscious. But they create all our fears and our anxieties around money. And it's only in shining a light on these that you see what's driving your behaviours every day. You see what has you feeling like you're stuck in a hamster wheel or can't have those dreams, or you're living believing that there's only one way of being. It's only work until you're 65, 70. That'll get you what you want. You're just stuck motoring on in them subconscious behaviours because when you're not shining a light, building that awareness on what has you there or has you believing those things in the first place. And the last thing, folks, today that I'm going to ask is, to shine the peakies on is what you believe about the world around you with money. What you see and what you believe, because again, that's your external, and most of us have been absolutely conditioned to believe that there is the 2% that are insanely wealthy, and then there's everybody else. And we've been conditioned through our own childhood and our way of living to believe that this is the only way, this is the way it is. So looking at the world around you and writing down what it is what way do you believe you need to be in the world to earn the money that you want, or to bring in, to have that money, to manifest that money into your life. What is it? How is it you think you need to show up? Do you think you have to, hustle and grind to your doom? You'll always be working. The harder you work, the more money you get. What is it that you're thinking about the external? Because that's your way of being. That's your way of showing up for money. And we can often think that, to make the money you want to make, you have to be a workaholic. You have to be out there doing. And that isn't. If anything, all you're creating is burnout. And what is it that all this money is going to bring? What are your desires? What are your wants? What are your needs? So looking at what you believe about the external world and asking yourself, what if that isn't actually the way? What if you could work differently or be different in the world, earn differently in a different way? What would that be? What would you be doing less of, and what would you be doing more of? Because it's only in opening ourselves up to the things that we really want that we're given our vast mind, our vast subconscious, the potential, the chance to even begin creating that for us. So look around, look at your life, look at what you think when you turn on the TV or when you're having conversations with your family or friends about money, when you're in a restaurant paying a bill, or you're paying for your shopping, or you're looking at your online bank balance. What's going on? What is it you're thinking? What is it you're feeling? What is it you're believing about the external world? Because again, folks, it's in looking at these things that we begin to reshape our relationship with money, our beliefs, our fears, and our anxieties around it. And once we begin eliminating them, even by 10%, we're already changing the structure of the energy we're putting out there, the behaviors we're putting out there, what our beliefs are, and therefore we're completely changing what it is that we're bringing in, what it is, what ways we're thinking, what ways we're doing things, and how we're living. So it really is worthwhile to look, because money does, I don't believe it makes the world go round. I think the world does that by itself, but it sure helps to give you freedom, happiness, achieve your desires, gift, be with your friends, all of those beautiful things that bring us joy. We need money for those things. We need an abundance of money for those things. So what are the things that are blocking you from having that? It's so worthwhile, folks. So do dive in. Remember, a letter to your money, what your beliefs are, your fears, anxieties in and around it, and what you believe about the external world when you're showing up in different places, looking at the accounts, all of those things. What are your thoughts? What are your fears? What are your anxieties? Because it's only in the seeing of them that we can begin to really, really do the work, shift them on out, and call that billions of moolah into our lives and spend. So that's it for me for this week, guys. I hope you really enjoyed it and got some fabulous takeaways. And as always, I invite you to connect in with me across social media, or check me out on my website, www.yourgifttoyou.com, or email me, linda@yourgifttoyou.com, guys, because I'd love to hear from you and any topics you'd like for us to talk about, or any more learnings that you want. And please remember, give me those reviews, because it keeps the podcast getting out there to more people. So chat to you very soon, guys. Bye bye.